Little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it oh shit. What's up guys, King Crisis here, welcome to the channel. If you guys are new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Welcome to the deku had Telekinesis. Quick update, this right here will be the second series that I will be uploading, which means this video will likely be coming out tomorrow, which is the day after me recording this. Of course, 2 days after What If Naruto had glitch release, technically 3, but it's 2 for me, so anyways. With that being said, this and glitch release will be the 2 series that I'm going to be recording, because honestly, shit, I just posted like 3 movies, like in the span of 1 week. So I low-key gotta do, something different. So with that being said, I'm trying to give you guys a series. It's been a little minute since I gave you guys a series. So this right here is going to be the first series that we're going to do. And then after I'm complete with this one, I'm going to move on over towards another What If, which is going to be What If Naruto had fierce wings, aka What If Naruto had Hawk's powers. You can thank me later. Anyways, with that being said, guys, I've seen that a few people actually recommended this. And since it was recommended, who am I to turn down an offer for a W movie? So with that being said, let's start this video. The video starts off with Izuku. You see, Izuku's in class. He watches as everyone else around him begins to awaken their quirks. And the young Deku watching this honestly begins to feel a bit of jealousy. Everyone around Deku are awakening powerful, cool, interesting, and intriguing quirks while he's getting nothing. Deku places his head down. A bit of shame starts to come over him. Everyone around him is awakened their quirks, and Izuku didn't. Izuku ends up going to the hospital, where from there the doctor would look at young Deku and shake his head sadly. I'm sorry, Mrs. Midoriya, but Izuku likely isn't going to develop a quirk. It's either he's never going to develop a quirk, or he will be a late bloomer. But from what we see, it's much more of a chance that he will never develop a quirk. Inko will place her head down slowly, a bit of sadness overcoming her. Izuku has a smile though. He looks upward and says he'll get a quirk though. He looks towards his mother. The doctor said, I have a chance, Mom. Inko, though, remain a bit saddened. The car ride home was silent. And as they go home, Inko would cry that night. Izuku also cried. It's not like Izuku isn't hurt by this, but this version of Izuku had a bit of hope. He knew there was a chance of him getting a quirk. Izuku's would still have to tell the class sadly that he's quirkless. But this version of Izuku, knowing the difference in Inko, this version of Inko isn't like canon Inko. You see, for one, this version of Inko's quirk is different. She still has the same base ability, which is the ability to pull small objects towards her. But instead, Inko for years trained up her quirk. And her quirk has 2 interesting new factors. For one, anytime she pulls something towards her, she can keep it going at the same pace it was moving at, or she can speed it up or slow it down to a complete stop. Basically, she can do Gojo's Infinity. But, so she can slow things down until it just stops at a certain point. But to make things crazier, her other ability is the fact that she can use this power on other people. Which means that she can make things go flying towards other people. And the difference with other people is, well, she can completely control if the objects stop or not, which means that she can make things go straight through you. Which means that Inko were to battle against someone and she has a sword, she can use her sword to literally control directly where the blade goes at a person. But it can only be used on one person at a time, so Inko's low-key a pretty bad type of fighter. But she can pull, at this point, human to monstrous sized things. About the largest thing Inko could pull would probably be an airplane, which is probably big. No, it's bigger than a tank. Airplanes are bigger than tanks. So she can pull over tank-sized things towards her and make them stop. And she can also make things pull in on itself, essentially collapsing things. So Inko is far more powerful with a telekinesis than what she was in the original timeline. But she still doesn't have full-fledged telekinesis. And the abilities that Inko have, Izuku will be able to do with pretty much ease. So with this, Izuku for the first few years of his life, upwards until Izuku was 12 years old, he was quirkless. And to one day, when Izuku was at home, he was a bit more upset. Inko was out doing her pro hero work, and Inko and Izuku's relationship will be close to canon, but not the same. Izuku will always be able to feel that Inko was a bit disappointed in him. And he felt like that his entire life. That is until Deku woke up. Inko was gone. No one was at home, and not even his maids were around. And the young Izuku was pretty upset. He looked around his room, and he just didn't like it. But he would smile as he got a text from his girlfriend. And that text message said one thing. One simple thing. Can we talk? Deku proceeds to say yeah as he begins to text her. But her text messages would just stop every 10 to 5 minutes. Sometimes she wouldn't reply for about 30 minutes. Izuku got aggravated until eventually he just stopped texting her. And then he finally got a message back. Then it simply said, we want to break up. She says that she found someone better. Someone way better. Stronger. Hotter. Cooler. Deku would think, wow, that sucks. He ends up putting the phone down. And after he puts the phone down, tears begin to go down his eyes a bit. He didn't realize that he was going to get this upset about everything, but, well, he does. He gets extremely hurt. Izuku then actually begins to break down. He begins to get very upset. Angry, even. He begins to think, I was good to her. I never did anything wrong to her. And she just with no hesitation, just threw me to the side. Deku's anger begins to overcome him. And as Deku begins to get angry, well, everything in the room began to float. A young Deku doesn't even notice this. He doesn't even pay attention to it, as everything in his room is floating upwards. Deku then begins to scream out in rage. And as he screams out in rage, he finally notices it. He finally notices the fact that everything around his room is fucking floating. Deku's eyes were just so wide. He was stunned. He didn't even know his quirk was active. He didn't even know he had a quirk. And he sees it. For the first time, it's activated. Deku seeing this, he begins to cheer up a lot. A happiness overcomes him stronger than the anger that he just felt. But as that simple fact of his quirk awakening made him so happy that he lost the anger boost that he just had. And everything in his room fell. Instantly, most of it hit the floor. Surprisingly enough, a few things didn't break. But his TV broke. Game almost broke. Everything else around him, a few things were broke, a few things weren't broke. That's just not the point. The point is, though, he just awakened his quirk. And Deku ran into his closet. He ran deep in his closet and began to dig through it like crazy. As he digs all throughout his closet, he finds a little box. He picks this box up and opens it. And inside is a book. His very first quirk book. And in this book was all the details and information specifically on Inko's quirk. Specifically on Inko's quirk alone. Deku looks at this as he begins to smile. Perfect. Deku would think. As he begins to read through it. Oh my god. Reading through Inko's quirk, okay? Because he specifically made this quirk from his mother. Okay, he had so many talks with his mom about his quirk, and Inko would always go on about her quirk. But Izuku always notices every time she talked about her quirk, it felt like she had a bit of sadness. Mainly because Inko doesn't like really talking about her quirk with Izuku, because to her, it feels like she's just bragging about herself to her son who doesn't even possess a quirk. So Inko never liked talking about it. But Izuku would constantly try getting Inko to talk about it, which made her want to do so because her son loved it. He loved talking about quirks and he loved learning about quirks. So Izuku reads through the book. Well, from there, Izuku quickly, for the next... Should I be dramatic with the story? Nah, I don't like them type of stories anyways. So for the next 2 years, Izuku secretly trained his quirk, never revealing to anyone that he had his quirk. Izuku's quirk aftertype, which was a possibility for his quirk, was actually pyrokinesis. But instead, Izuku developed telekinesis, with a bit of a twist, but that won't happen until later on. Izuku learned how to use the abilities that Inko can do with such ease. He learned how to pull things towards them and make them stop in their tracks, perfectly landing in his hands, softly even. Sometimes Izuku would go out to very dangerous parts of towns where villains and even shootouts would happen often, and sometimes he would even get in a crossfire on purpose. A bit suicidal, but it worked. It made Izuku be able to learn how to use his quirk better. Izuku would sneak out and even become a vigilante, fighting crime at times. And Izuku was literally, he went by the name Get Back, because literally, anytime he fought against a villain, he used his telekinesis to throw them back. Not many people knew what his quirk was, but many people assumed that Get Back's quirk was the ability to simply push things away. And that's what it was. He literally was just pushing them away with massive amounts of telekinetic force. And most of the time this worked. People assumed there was this general barrier around him that knocked everything back. So if a villain used any type of quirk that involved any emitter-based quirk, Izuku was able to basically counter it back against them because he just throws their attacks back at them with a telekinetic push. After Izuku done all this, he trained for 2 years straight, secretly working even as a vigilante at times. With Inko never finding out, Izuku never told a soul. He kept his quirk a secret. Deku then, at the end of the year, the teacher throws the papers in the air towards the class, explaining that he was going to give them job applicant tests, but keep it real. We all know you guys want to be heroes. Everyone cheers, and like normal, the teacher ends up loud capping the fact that Deku wants to go to UA. The entire class begins to talk crazy to Deku as they did in the original timeline. Bakugo approaches Deku, slams his hand on his desk and tells him that if he ever wants to go to UA should be ashamed of themselves. Deku will keep his head down, not really saying much. He just says, "It's okay, Kachan. I'm gonna be able to do it." Bakugo just looks at him. "You're not gonna be able to do shit." Deku will ball up his fist. Bakugo isn't able to see it obviously because his hands is, a little slanted. A bit of anger slowly creeps into Deku's mind, but he will calm himself, knowing that when the time is right, he'll show it off. He'll show that he's not weak. He'll show his quirk off. Little does Deku know, that time would only be a few hours from now. Deku ends up putting his head down. Like, he just left it down, and the class will just laugh at Deku. All of them saying he's not going to get into UA. Eventually, Deku ends up leaving. Like normal, he proceeds to allow Bakugo to explode his quirk book. Because to Deku, for one, the one he brings to school is a spare. His real one's at home at all times. Locked up, that bitch safe. So he didn't care, but he acted like he did. He acted like he was upset about it, because he had to. He had to keep the act going. Izuku, did I just say Izuku? Izuku eventually makes it under the tunnel, as he would have in the original timeline. Due to Izuku being caught completely off guard by the sludge villain, he still ends up getting entangled in him. This version of Izuku slowly begins to use his telekinesis to push the sludge villain off of him. As he's doing this though, All Might ends up arriving with, "I am here! Detroit! Smash! Smash! Smash!" All Might still ends up punching away the sludge villain and completely destroying it, as he would have in the original timeline. As he does this, Izuku is sent flying back because, of course, All Might just destroyed the sludge villain and Izuku was in that bitch. So as he's sent flying back, Izuku ends up using his telekinesis to fly upwards. As he does, he catches himself and he looks towards All Might. Izuku freezes. A super fanboy moment just takes complete control over Izuku to the point where he uses his quirk and pulls All Might towards him. Izuku looks at him and just says, "You are amazing, you are amazing, you are amazing." He begins to absolutely glaze All Might. And as he glazes All Might, a burning question just enters Izuku's mind. Should he reveal his quirk to his family? Should he reveal his quirk to his friends? Like he's just going crazy wondering. And All Might ends up doing the same thing again. The difference is though, Izuku doesn't grab on. This time he flies after All Might. And when he flies after him, he explains that he just wants to know if All Might, do we think a late bloomer could be just as powerful of a hero as, every other hero? All Might wants to talk. He tries talking, but like normal, he ends up poofing. And Deku just looks at him. "Who the fuck are you?" Deku proceeds to say. And All Might then would say, "It's me, kid." Deku then would say, I don't think I know a me, kid." Deku would say, "Are you posing as All Might, you fucking bastard?" All Might then would say, "I'm not posing as All Might, I am All Might." Deku then would say, "You're All Might. Over my dead body, I believe that shit." All Might then would say, "I am All Might, kid." Deku's like, "Okay, if you're All Might, then I'm Endeavor." Deku proceeds to say. All Might's like, "Then I guess you're Endeavor," he would say, "because I really am All Might." Okay, if you're All Might, tell me something only All Might would know. "You don't know me," All Might proceeds to say. Deku then would say, "Yes, but I know how good of a hero All Might is, and the type of person he is. If it came down to save 20 people, would you save only 20 or would you save everyone?" All Might then would say, "What?" If you had a choice to save 20 people or to save the ones you love, who would you save? All Might then would say 20 people. Deku then would say, "Up, you're All Might." From here, they're on the roof, and like normal, they still ends up hearing explosions in the distance. Reasoning behind this is All Might, when he noticed Deku, he landed on the roof a little bit a little stumbling, he moved a little quicker to get on the roof. So, the kid wouldn't see him de-transform mid-air or some shit, or something crazy. As he ends up getting down, they had that same conversation. Or from here, the explosion ends up happening. As it happens, Deku proceeds to look off in the distance, and as he did, All Might would look on the side and say, "Shit!" He immediately notices the sludge villain is gone. And Deku seeing this, he would have a huge, moment of, horribleness overcome him. He feels extremely responsible for that villain escaping. All Might then would tell him that it's okay, kid. It's okay. After he's already poofed, but he just tells him, it's okay, you can be a hero. Even if you are a late bloomer. Kid, you seem to be pretty powerful. Your quirk is flying, right? Deku would say no, his quirk is telekinesis. He's the son of Inko Midoriya. Lady Magneto? The fuck? All Might would say he turns. Telekinesis? Lady Magneto? Yes! All Might just says, but I have to go now. As he goes downstairs, the explosions grow louder. And as they grow louder, Deku would wonder what it is. He ends up leaving as he would have in the original timeline. And he ends up seeing exactly what is seen in the original timeline. Bakugo being trapped inside of the sludge villain. In that instant, Deku yet again did the same thing Canon Deku would have did. And his body moved on its own. Deku proceeds to activate his quirk as he rushes forward. As soon as Deku rushes forward, the sludge villain would look at him. You again? You want some... Before he can even speak, the sludge villain begins to feel himself get pulled forward. He's stunned as he literally gets pulled forward, and Deku lifts out his hands. The sludge villain becomes compressed into a small ball. Deku, within an instant, captured the sludge villain. And the crowd watching this are stunned. Bakugo looks upward, stunned, but also traumatized. So, he doesn't even say anything. He just looks stunned. From here, the 10 months of training will begin. And pretty simply, All Might actually doesn't ask Deku for One For All. And you're probably wondering why. He did to move his body on his own thing. This version of All Might is going to be a little bit more cautious about One For All. Okay, I'm going to make him more cautious, more serious. Mainly because I don't want to give Deku One For All at the start of the story, because that'll just be too fucking overpowered. And we're going to say Deku actually flew home. Too many people started surrounding him this timeline. Deku just gave the sludge villain to the nearest hero, and bro flew home as fast as he could. Because too much attention on him. He's literally a fucking vigilante. People, if anyone were to notice, the fact that this dude did something that once the vigilante Get Back did, yeah, nah. People could have caught on. So Deku flew home immediately. Now, when Deku makes it home, Inko seen what happened on the news. Actually, on her phone, as she was already fighting another villain, she had it broadcasting through her helmet. And Izuku gets home, and Inko already was there. And Deku would say, "Hi, Mom." Inko then would play the video on the TV. And Deku would say, "I can explain." Inko then would say, "How long? How long have you had your quirk, Izuku? And did you use my quirk?" Inko has a smile on her face. Izuku was expecting her to be angry that she kept this a secret, which of course she is gonna be, but she just looks towards Izuku just smiling, literally cheesing. She rushes towards him, hugs him, and spins him in the air, explaining that she's so proud of him. Deku just looks towards Inko. He begins to cry, explaining that he awakened his quirk 2 years ago. He explains everything to his mother. He was a vigilante. He was Get Back. He used his quirk in order to push his enemies and push things away from him. And that he learned to do the opposite whilst fighting in combat. He then explains that he also learned how to move and slam people around with his telekinesis. He explains that he's able to pick up rocks and things, but he can't just snatch it up from the ground. It has to already be removed from the ground itself. Inko is happy. She's extremely happy of what Izuku is telling her. Bro has telekinesis. He has her quirk. And he can do more with her quirk than she can. She smiles uncontrollably. She hugs Izuku, and then she proceeds to tell him that she's so proud of him and that he's going to be great. Deku would smile uncontrollably. This is the first time his mother has genuinely told him he could be great. Like, she's showing genuine compassion, true love for Izuku. And it's been a minute. Deku's facial expression becomes serious, though. He explains that he needs to train, and Inko would smile, as she tells him that she's going to train him, and also give him ideas on how to use his powers more effectively. The training would begin, and Inko explains to Izuku that telekinesis is the power to move things with his mind. She explains that her quirk is telekinesis, but she can only move things in one way. Well, technically two. She can only pull things towards her or pull things towards other people. She's still moving the things towards it, but she explains that her power is a pathway. Basically, she lifts up a quarter, and then she proceeds to tell Izuku that this quarter could shoot through his body if it's moving fast enough. If anything is moving fast enough, it becomes, number one, stronger, and it even becomes a bit more durable. She holds the quarter up as she shows him a dummy, and she proceeds to flick her finger, and as she does, the quarter shoots right through the dummy's head. Mind you, this dummy is going to be made out of like a pretty strong metal, and the quarter comes out unscathed, no problems with it. She explains that this one little quarter could probably kill about 7 people with Izuku's use of his quirk. She explains that Izuku can control the direction of anywhere it goes, everywhere. Inko can only make things go forward. She can only make things go forward. As she says it, she puts a marker on a place, and once that place is targeted, that's where her quirk attracts itself to, which means it can only go one way. She then looks towards Izuku. She explains that if things are big enough and she holds onto it, she can pull herself towards like a specific building, which gives her like a slight bit of flight, but she has to switch the target very quickly or else she would fall to her death. She explains that she's seen Izuku flying on the videos, which means that Izuku doesn't even need to do that. Izuku would smile, expressing that he doesn't need to do that. He's powerful enough without that. This causes her to say, "You're powerful. You're able to do it without that." And that says a lot. That power is like nothing I've ever seen. Inko proceeds to say, she tells Izuku, like, "You're one of the most powerful kids on this planet." She would say, as she smiles, she tells Izuku, like, "Be ready, Izuku. Because what's going to happen is going to be insane." Inko put Izuku through some of the craziest training through some of the craziest training of all the Dekus in the What If, but he ends up getting his telekinesis down packed very well. And his telekinesis actually surpasses the powers of most other people who have telekinesis-based quirks. Pyrokinesis, telekinesis, cryokinesis. I mean, Deku can do things like no other. He's even learned how to perform aerokinesis. And Inko would wonder, how come Izuku has aerokinesis? Deku then explains, like, he just did it. Like, he just used his quirk to control the air. And he says, like, it's simple. He explains that he tried doing it with the ground too, but like, it didn't work. Inko hears this and she would smile. See? Again, you're doing things that your quirk itself doesn't even do. She explains to Izuku that he's a prodigy and that she wants to teach him so much more. She wants him to see more. She wants him to do more. So she continued to train with Izuku. After she gets done training with Izuku, well, Inko proceeds to smile and walk away. Izuku would thank his mother. As he thanks her, Inko would say that there's no need to thank her. Like, she's his mother. She's going to thank him. No matter what. Izuku low-key starts to cry, like, for no reason she did all this. Like, she genuinely didn't have to do all this. But she did. For no reason. Anyways, we're going to time skip because I low-key been glazing Inko a little bit too much. So, we time skip on over to Warsha UA entrance exams. Deku ends up bumping into Bakugo again after the 10 months. And during the actual 10 months of training, Izuku straight up was never at school during this time. Never. Didn't go to school for shit. So, Did I? Oh shit. So Bakugo wasn't expecting Deku to show up. And when he showed up, he looks towards him and just a look like fucking bitch. Deku proceeds to say immediately. And Bakugo would look at him confused, like, the fuck did I do? He would say. Deku just looks at him like he's an idiot. He explains that for the longest time now, he's pretty sure he could have kicked his ass. And he says it just plain and simply. You're nothing, Bakugo. For years I've shown you mercy. For years I acted as if you were a threat to me. For years I sat back and pretended like I was afraid of you. Bakugo, you are nothing in comparison to me. I want you to know that. He steps forward again. I could have destroyed you so many times, but I kept trying to be cordial. I kept trying to calm myself down. I kept faking like I was just good guy when in all actuality, I'm really not, he would say. I could destroy you with my pinky toe. Bitch. As Deku proceeds to walk away. As soon as Deku walks away, Bakugo looks stunned. He don't even understand how he's supposed to feel about that. Like, Deku just bitched him. He bitched him badly. He's not gonna take it. He's just not going to take that. He's never going to take that because there's no way this man's just bitched him. Bakugo thinks about throwing an explosion right now, but he decides not to because it's not necessary. He doesn't throw an explosion. He waits. After waiting for a while, Bakugo... Fuck, I'm getting off topic. Time skip. Shit. They end up taking the test. The test ends up going like normal. Ida still ends up calling out Deku, as well as calling out President Mike. But this version of Deku, before Ida could finish, would tell him to shut up. He looks at him and explains. First off, the 0-pointer. President Mike isn't finished talking. He said that all those robots are going to be the robots worth points. They're going to be the robots that you need to destroy. The 0-pointer will likely simply be an obstacle, one you have to either escape or simply survive. Deku would say, you're trying to call people out and you're trying to be a smartass and yet you're wrong. The least you can do when you're going to call someone out is be correct. Deku would say. And Ida just silent. Deku then would say, so I rest my case. And mind your tongue when you're talking to me. Because you don't know who you're stepping to. Deku would say, you're a bitch. And with this happening, Ida just got humbled. And Ida would say, fine. He shuts his mouth. Well, from here, Deku ends up walking forward towards the gate, as he would have in the original timeline. When Deku walks forward towards the gate, Deku looks at it. He smiles, and Deku proceeds to go forward. As he goes forward, Ida walks up to him. Hey, I know you're not going to go distract that girl. Deku just turns and looks at him. What? I know you're not going to go distract that girl. Deku will just look around, confused. He then points towards Ochako. Don't play stupid. Deku will look at her. First off, I'm not going to go distract her. Secondly, why are you in my business? Deku will question, confused. There's no need to be in my business. Mind your tongue. You fucking idiot. Deku would say. As he says this, Ida gets a little annoyed. But whilst they are arguing, the gates proceed to open. And when the gates open, Deku don't hesitate. He turns and he takes off, zooming. As he zooms off, Deku firstly runs up, jumps into the air, and proceeds to throw a mean punch. Okay? That punch lands on a 1-pointer, and the 1-pointer is just blown back, and that bitch is destroyed. And Deku proceeds to have a pretty big smile on his face, like he was not expecting that to happen. Like, he destroyed that bitch in one punch. He smiles, stunned. But from here, we're going to time skip again. for like the 600th time. With the time skip now, I'm so sorry, y'all. With the time skip now happening, Deku's destroyed several robots, either using his telekinesis to pull two robots together, crashing them together, to use telekinesis to literally rip the robots apart himself, literally crush their hands down into two big old spikes and throwing those spikes into other robots. Deku has demolished every robot within his path until the zero pointer ends up arriving. Now, the zero pointer arrives, Deku sees it. He thinks he can take it out, but he isn't too certain, and Deku doesn't want to take the risk. With Deku not wanting to take the risk, he instead decides to run. Running away from the zero pointers ends up leading to Ochako screaming for help, as she would have in the original timeline. As she screams for help, Ida runs past Deku. Deku side-eyes Ida as he runs past him, and he's a bit surprised that Deku could keep up with him, especially sight-wise. He did a Barry Allen Superman moment, and after Deku heard that scream for help, he didn't hesitate. He flew forward towards where Ochako was. He struggles, but he uses his telekinesis. He lifts up the rubble. As soon as Deku lifts up the rubble, this time around, Zero Pointer gets to them much, much faster, and the Zero Pointer proceeds to step down. But as it does, Deku then will say, "Almighty push!" Of course, with Deku saying this, the Zero Pointer is boom, thrown back. It's flung back. It's sent flying. And the zero pointer ends up crashing against the ground. And that bitch falls over. And Deku stands upward and looks pretty surprised at what he just did. Easily, he threw that zero pointer back with no difficulty. And not only did he throw it back, it was sent flying. But Deku realized that throwing that bitch back and sending it flying was a bad decision. So he flies upward into the air and proceeds to use his telekinesis as he catches the zero pointer. As Deku does it, he begins to close his hands and he squeezes the zero pointer until it is compact into a square. And then Deku squeezes more and more and more and more until it becomes a tiny little cube. Deku's nose begins to bleed profusely as Deku falls out of the air. With Deku falling out of the air, Ochako still smacks him and then boom, he's floating. With this being said, here's where we're going to be ending off part 1 on what if Deku had telekinesis. With that being said, guys, comment any idea you guys have down below in the comment sections. I am open to them. I'm always open to you guys' suggestions. So, that being said, the king is out. That was so fucking corny. Anyways, join the Discord server, y'all. For real. Link in the description down below.